Right. Welcome, everybody, to the Energy and Sustainability Working Party of Haverhill Town Council. As usual, this group can't make any decisions. Anything that happens goes to full council. Right. Apologies for absence then, Colin. You're muted.
Sorry, I was stopping us being interrupted by whatever version of our last meeting YouTube decides to play us when I'm checking it. But I have checked we are live streaming. So yes, Councillor Brown and Councillor Lucarini have given their apologies.
Okay, Councillor Stinchcombe, you're muted, by the way. Must be the most common phrase used, I think, in the last couple of years. You're muted.
I'm on now. Yeah, sorry, yeah. I was in another application when I hit the spacebar. I have had a message from Liz reminding me that she's away, and she says she sent her apologies. I don't know to whom or when, but
oh, well, I only looked back over the last few days, so I'm perfectly willing to accept she did.
This might have been a month ago, for all I know. So
yeah, okay. Well, we'll add her apologies as well. Thank you for that, Alan. It's appreciated. Apologies to Liz for not remembering that.
Okay.
Actually, I can see an email here.
Okay. Well, while you're looking for that, I'll go on to number 3. Declarations of pecuniary.
Oh, yes, you did indeed. Sorry, I started another conversation with her on a different topic. So, yeah, she did. She gave her apologies last Wednesday.
Okay. So, item 3, declarations of interest. Anybody? No. Okay. Item 4, minutes of the previous meeting held on the 8th of February.
Did you want those on screen?
Yeah, I'm assuming the others have read them. Yeah, mate, put them on screen anyway. Got it. Only because it means I don't have to open it up as well. So, assuming none of you have got any problems.
That's a full council. Sorry, apologies.
We're close. Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Stinchcombe, seconder. Councillor Miller-Jones, thank you very much. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. Item, whatever it is. Put the page over. Item 5, actions from previous meeting, not on the agenda, which Colin's listed out anyway.
Yep, so... so let's get the right one up.
It's about the solar panels.
Yeah, so I know that he's been having discussions. As far as I know, I haven't heard from him that he's actually heard back from West Suffolk on that. But what I should say is that Gary, he's abroad, but not necessarily. It's not Rwanda style, but a similar sort of inability to. He'd probably be better off getting a rubber dinghy. His car, his notorious car, has broken down in France, and he was supposed to be back in the UK today, and instead on Thursday, his car is being towed to the ferry. Being shoved on the ferry, and then the RAC are going to collect it at the other end and take it back whilst he has a courtesy car. So I should think the RAC European breakdown cover has been fully utilised. So he's not. So unfortunately, he's not here to answer very many of the questions.
Okay, Councillor Stinchcombe.
Right, sorry, if I hit the right button, yes, I have. Yeah. Could I just speak to that while we're on it? Because I think early on we got back from Gary that, or was it by Colin, that the Arts Centre couldn't possibly have solar panels on it because it's, a heritage asset. But I feel that's a wrong decision. This isn't Westminster Abbey or the Houses of Parliament. This is the Arts Centre, and there is a climate emergency. So I would like us to be a bit more assertive. Or, I mean, if there's absolutely no hope, if the development control have made it clear that it's just not going to happen. Obviously, we're wasting our time, but I would still, even if that's the case, I would still like to send through the message again via district councillors, and Tony in particular as his chair of this, that really that's probably not good enough. It may be a fact, but I don't think it's good enough really. Because it is, as various documents I've produced in the past have shown, it's perfectly possible to make a perfectly respectable looking roof. It doesn't have to be horrible layers of decking on top of a slate roof. It can be replacements for the slates, unless we're going to say, well, we can't afford to re-roof the re-roofing element of taking the old slates off. And I agree that photovoltaic slates are probably a hell of a lot more expensive than ordinary roofing slates. So, and combination of those and ordinary bolt-on panels. Thank you.
We can go back to the heritage officer and discuss that with her. I think that came from West Suffolk's energy people, as opposed to necessarily the heritage officer actually saying that there is no chance of it happening. So we can push on that. I know that in the past, discussions over what we thought were, if you like, as majorly beneficial improvements as you're describing, in terms of the overall kind of balance between preserving a heritage asset and actually making it, keeping it relevant as a building. This tended to always slip towards preserving the heritage asset. So it may be just have a discussion, and you may be right that once we find out from the officers, if it turns out that they would be amenable to such a proposal, we could cost it up. And we do have a major sort of replacement maintenance budget available, though it's really been earmarked for the air handling system. But there's also things like Public Works Loan Board, which before interest rates start climbing up too high, might be a way to go. The alternative is if it's a firm no, but we're not convinced that it really is an impossibility, then yes, we could perhaps look at the political route, because clearly officers only have a certain envelope they're allowed to work in. It's politicians who actually bust the envelope open and decide to do something that's against policy. So I don't know. I think the heritage officer is in the development portfolio. So I don't know who is that David Roach?
Not planning. Yes, sorry, planning. Yes, it is from that side of things. I agree with you. I think it will be actually extremely expensive to put stuff on the roof, and you can only put it on one side because that's the only one that's facing south. But it's quite interesting. There's been a couple of cases recently, development control wise. I think one in Kelford Green as well recently, where there was asking to put solar panels on a grade 2 listed building, and it was comprehensively rejected by the Development Control Committee for various reasons. I wasn't actually at that particular meeting, but so I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know how it would go down. And the other thing, obviously, to look at is whether or not, and this may be the energy side of things, is whether the size of the roof actually would generate enough electricity to warrant the cost. To remember, if this is a West Suffolk scheme we're talking about here, they've obviously got to get some money back out of it through the not the payback, but the money they get from it. So I'd be interested to see what they say, but from both angles, Colin.
Yeah, so I'll start the conversation off.
Yeah,
thank you.
Councillor Miller-Jones.
On the solar panels for the zone, sorry, I just spent ages looking for an email that I knew I'd sent to Gary and I wasn't sure when, and it was just a few days after this last meeting, because I had said that I would send the offers that Gary had had to Miles and get his opinion, and he sent back a very comprehensive email, which I forwarded to Gary, and I was just wondering, Colin, if you knew anything about any progress with that. Miles sent a sort of big long list of sort of questions that he recommended asking the various offers that he'd received. Have you heard anything on that from him?
I don't recall, to be perfectly honest. Let's see what the last communication I had was.
Shall I forward this email to you now, just so that you can have it?
I'll go ahead and forward it anyway to Colin anyway.
Yeah.
No.
Especially if you never copied him on the first place.
Yeah,
Can't see anything.
I feel like I would have copied Colin in, but it doesn't look like I did for some reason, which I think was a mistake. But I'm just forwarding it to you now.
Cool.
There you go. Sent.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I'll look into that.
But yeah, I mean, I think the takeaway was there are like millions of questions that I did not understand to ask the various providers, but he seemed to think that the West Suffolk District Council offers seemed to sort of make more sense, or a lot of sense anyway. It seemed like a good deal, whereas the other kind of commercial offers that Gary had received seemed to be a bit sort of worryingly cheap. It seemed to be a bit sort of concerning that they may not actually be kind of a very good standard thing because of the cost of them. Whereas obviously the West Suffolk one was sort of better value, but I think sort of, more trustworthy. But anyway, I forwarded you the email so you can see it, and maybe you could just check with Gary and see if he got anywhere with asking those questions.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've just read your email. Yeah, okay, that's really useful. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think, I've said it before, the system of West Suffolk installed on my business roof has been, proved, very reliable, not a problem, and is producing us energy, albeit,
Yeah, Miles was looking at the companies that West Suffolk had invited to quote for the work, and was just giving a synopsis of his feelings over the comparative quotes. And I think it's useful to have somebody like that because a lot of the stuff we don't have a clue what they're talking about, and they'll know how. One particular, to me, a solar panel is a solar panel, but I should think that's probably sacrilege to a energy specialist who will point out all sorts of differences that make a fundamental change to the decisions you might come up with.
Yeah, but didn't I understood the commercial companies were commercial quotes separate from anything West Suffolk?
Yeah, there was the West Suffolk offer, and then there were two external commercial offers as well. Yeah,
because West Suffolk uses a standard installer.
Yeah. So it was Solar East Anglia, East Green Energy, and then West Suffolk.
That's right.
District Council.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you for that.
Okay,
appreciate it. Then there's the sustainable market. I have to say that I don't know an awful lot about this. Laura, has there been a second? So there was. I think we arranged one, didn't we? Because we had the woman with the clothing stuff that.
We did. Yeah. So a lot of the people who couldn't attend the first one managed to attend the second one. It was really amazing. Really, really positive. A lot better than the first one. Very busy, very well received. Lots of the public was sort of saying, "Oh, this is amazing!" Just everyone was really positive. The stall holders were really, really positive about it. They were pleased about how busy it was. Every single stall holder that I spoke to, which I think was all of them pretty much, said that they would love to do it again. The Keep Haverhill recycling people have asked that next time we do it, if we could possibly try and help it coincide with their store, because both times we've done it the week after. They're the third Saturday of every month, and we keep doing it a week after that. And they said that so the first sustainability market, I ran the Keep Haverhill recycling store, and it actually took loads in, because loads of people had missed it the week before, so loads of them came along with the stuff that they hadn't managed to bring. But on this more recent one, the recycling people just ran it as like an information sort of store, where they were just telling people about what they do, but weren't actually taking anything, mainly just because of the capacity that they had to take stuff, because it's tricky for them to do 2 weeks in a row. So they did ask, when we're organising the next one, if we could try and do it on the third Saturday of the month. Obviously, it's not a huge deal, but they would appreciate it.
Yeah, that's not an issue. I mean, has Sarah come up with a thought for the next one?
I did mean to talk to her about that, but I haven't, and I don't know. But I mean, I would like to do them more often, and that seemed to be general consensus from everybody there too. So, I mean, I'm all for picking another date. I know we've got a very busy summer coming up.
Yeah, no, there's obviously no issue with the third Saturday. It's as easy as pie, really. Once we know that that's what we've got to choose, it narrows it down, really, doesn't it? There's 13 of them, 12 of them, I suppose, and we'll get it sorted.
I mean, maybe we could sort of try and make it a very regular thing, instead of, say, every other month on the third Saturday of the month. I don't know what people think about that.
Yeah, I'll take a sounding from Sarah to whether or not that works okay. What I don't know is what the cost is to the council offhand. I'll need to check with her what the cost of the various activities, etc., that are in it, 'cause obviously they're not all free stalls to us. But I think it's all good contribution to footfall and for promoting eco stuff, and to a certain extent we'll kind of feed nicely into a conversation we'll be having a bit later on about helping people through the energy crisis.
Okay, a couple of things. I know, and I missed this totally. I noticed under B there on the screen, it says the Marketing and Communications Manager 2.
So it is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I missed that totally. I don't know if everyone else probably did as well, but
Sarah got at it and deleted whatever it was. I'll have to go back onto the recording and check what it was that she was offering. It looks like it's referring to the market that took place on the 26th of March. So I imagine it's been done.
Yeah.
Oh, I would also just like to give a shout out to, now I'm going to get his name wrong. I think it's Liam from East Town Park. Is that right? Liam or Lee? Liam, I think.
I think it's a Liam. He gets involved in, he did was he at the tree warden thing?
I'm not sure, but he did a stall at the last sustainability market on kind of wildlife and bugs and things. And it was a huge hit. And he was so brilliant and educational. He brought along loads of skulls and sort of various things, shed spider skins and things. And he was just so brilliant, sort of with all the kids and the adults who were asking questions. He seemed to be able to answer every question in really interesting detail. Everyone loved him and he was just great. So I want more of him.
Okay, I'll check we've got the right name. And
yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Liam.
Our ranger Liam. Yeah, it is Liam.
Yeah.
Liam Judd.
The other thing I was going to say, go back to the sustainable market side of things. On Thursday, I'm presenting the results of the review into West Suffolk markets I've been working on for the last probably a year now, I think. And one of the themes, we've got several themes to it. One of which is reduce the environmental impact on West Suffolk markets, promote more sustainable shopping habits. And so one of the things, two things we're recommending. One is carry out an officer assessment of reducing the environmental impact of the market, which most of the time, to be honest with you, is not a major problem, the markets we have. But also coordinate a campaign to encourage traders and shoppers on all markets, and we're not just talking about Haverhill here, to reduce the use of single-use or non-sustainable packaging and receptacles, as well as promote increased recycling rates. Again, a lot of the market stalls use paper, or paper type packaging. There's a few still use plastics. Obviously, we need to stop there. So just to let you know, that's happening on Thursday for overview and scrutiny.
Okay. And the next one is the Salix funding that Laura wanted to discuss.
Yes, so it's not, I mean, apparently there are rounds being released all the time. I think we missed one last time I spoke to Miles, which was a while ago, and I think we might have missed another one. They do keep happening, and we do want to try and obviously not be missing them all and be trying to get something in for them. And basically what Miles said to me was that our bid was very, very, very good, but it was simply a case of timing, that because obviously their company is being, paid to officially do these bids for people, they had to focus on those first and get those in first. And so basically by the time he got around to helping us as a freebie, we missed the boat. So he said there is a danger of that keeping on happening as they're taking on more and more councils. And it's basically a case that unless we want to actually kind of do it officially, we may find that we sort of continue to miss the boat. What he basically explained to me was that they have been procured by Cambridgeshire County Council. I'm just going to find the information because my brain is not very good. So Cambridgeshire County Council did a major framework procurement, right? Which basically, okay, so their local authority clients are Cambridgeshire County Council, Cambridge City Council, South Cambridgeshire District Council, Fenland District Council, and Huntingdonshire District Council. And they've been delivering that walk on an energy performance contracting arrangement, which means that they guarantee the performance of the measures long term, which means that all the risk is transferred to Bouygues, which is the company that he works for. And then now they've just been awarded a 4-year framework with Cambridgeshire County Council, which means that Cambridgeshire County Council went through an OJEU procurement process and have got that. And the OJEU is the something Journal of European Union. Yeah, I can't remember what the O stands for.
Official.
Thank you. But it means that now that procurement that they went through is open to all public sector organisations in England. So rather than having to go through a very expensive procurement procedure ourselves, we can use the one that Cambridgeshire County Council already did. But the way to do that is, from my understanding, to speak to Miles or Bouygues about an access agreement, which basically gives us access to that framework. And I don't believe the agreement has any costs or commitment or anything, but then obviously to then, work with them, I don't know exactly what that would involve. So basically my suggestion is that we should look into doing that, and perhaps sort of Colin and Gary, whoever, have a meeting with Miles to understand, because I am a really bad messenger. Because I don't understand half of it. But from my understanding, basically, that would be the way, if we actually want to kind of go forward with this Salix stuff, that would be the best way to do it, because now that Cambridgeshire County Council have done all the procurement, it would save us from having to do it. We can basically just use their work. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, it kind of makes sense, but I suppose obviously the kind of stand back question is the reason that they would have to go through the OJEU commissioning process is the size of the contract, and it's a massive contract, which we wouldn't be anywhere near. Would be probably 4%, 1% perhaps even of a contract that would need to go through that length of commissioning. So I think it's useful. I mean, how do you, is it Bouygues?
Yeah, Bouygues. Yeah.
Bouygues. Well, thank you, because I've always wondered how to pronounce that, because I came across those in France quite a lot, and they also look after some streetlights, etc., in some areas as well.
So Miles said it doesn't make any difference about the differences. It just means that they've got the framework and everything, which means that you don't have to go through what apparently is a very expensive process. So it's essentially Cambridgeshire County Council already paid to set up the framework, and it wouldn't matter if we're using the framework for much less. The framework is there already, which is the important thing. So it just makes it a lot easier for us. And this is something that just happened. So I'm not sure how recently, but it was very recent that this has all been settled, which means while this wasn't on offer to us last year when we were trying to do all these rounds of funding, now it would be, and I'm not sure if or when there would be any cost, because if he told me that, I've forgotten it because we had this conversation so long ago. But I know that the whole access agreement thing, I said, is that going to cost us anything? And he said no. So, because obviously we don't want to be spending money, but if we can do something, I just think that possibly people should have a meeting with Miles.
Yeah, certainly we can do that. And I think obviously the question is whether or not Cambridge would allow us access to the framework agreement. So there's various framework agreements. So, for instance, we're with the Suffolk County Council agreement, framework agreement for things like the provision of our multifunction devices from Sharp Systems. And they would probably have me shot if I said on a YouTube video the price that Sharp were doing their machines for compared to if we were just doing it on a commercial basis. So framework agreements can be very usual. Normally you need permission to access a framework agreement. So in terms of...
this is open to all public sector organisations in England.
Well, that would be fantastic if it is, because normally principal authorities enter into framework agreements and allow people in on the basis that, so for instance, Suffolk lets Haverhill use their framework agreement. Their fig leaf is, well, Haverhill's in Suffolk and we're helping the Suffolk taxpayer save money. It'd be great if Cambridge is allowing the whole sub-region or whole of England to do it. That'd be really fantastic. But we would still probably need an actual kind of permission. And then, yes, it's whatever the agreement is and what Salix may be able to offer under that agreement. So absolutely worth exploring. That's a really great shout.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry that I can't be more helpful with what I'm saying. I wish I understood it more. But
try reading the regulations. It's over everybody's head. I think, and I think purposefully so. It keeps procurement officers in jobs.
It's interesting that the next phase of the low carbon skills funding actually opens tomorrow for the latest phase. Whether that's of any interest to us, or whether, again, as Colin suggested, perhaps it's way above our, not pay scale, but you know what I mean, the potential funding. Well,
low carbon skills might be of interest to Karen and people in terms of skills training, etc.
Yeah, maybe, but I know I just looking at the Salix website.
But we'll take that as an action point that we'll get in contact with Miles to find out who we need to speak to within Cambridge or whichever authority led on it, and then if we can just confirm from them, obviously. It's different to the supplier, but if it's from the actual people who commission the work, if they're happy for us to use their framework agreement, then that's fantastic.
I think if you could arrange a sort of Zoom with Miles, that would probably be the most beneficial thing, because then he can lay out exactly, and he can answer any questions you have.
Oh, great! Thank you for that.
Okay. Anything else on the?
No, the rest are on the agenda.
No, so that was everything on the agenda, yeah. And nobody else got any comments on the minutes other than that thing. Right, let's move on to item 6, public forum. Anybody? Comment?
No.
Oh, okay, quickly moving on to item 7, literacy champions.
Yes, okay, hi. This is more of me, I'm afraid. So I'm sure you've probably all met Suzanne Stevenson by now, who's doing the literacy champion stuff. She's very wonderful. So the literacy champions have recently started what's the word? I can't think of the word. Getting some of them to be eco-literacy champions, which is basically more of the same sort of thing. You know, trying to find various ways to encourage equality through literacy in the community, but with a focus on sort of eco themes. So at the moment, I think we've only got 3 in Haverhill, which is myself, Jackie Podzinski, is that how you pronounce it? Something like that.
Don't know the name.
She's one of the ones who's usually on the recycling store. That Jackie, if anyone knows her.
Oh, okay. I think she came along to the launch of Sustainable Haverhill then.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. And someone who I think you know, John, Nan Eshelby, who is the local author. The reason I think you know her is I think you know her because she has been trying to sort some stuff out about the verges for the bees. She's a local children's author who wrote a book about bees.
Not me.
And I think she said she'd been speaking to you about, was it not you? Or maybe it was someone else. Okay.
I know her to look at, but I don't know.
Okay.
No, not me.
Anyway, well, she'd spoken to a couple of councillors anyway, but anyway, none of that's really the point. So at the moment, we've got about 3 eco-literacy champions. Hopefully we will have more at some point, but we are interested in basically putting on events around literacy and the environment. And as we're our sustainability committee, I thought you guys might be interested in getting involved, sharing ideas. Obviously not right now, but it's just something I wanted to inform you that it's happening. And I, because working with Get Stuff at Reading, obviously there's sort of limited funding. You know, we can apply for kind of small amounts of money for sort of prizes and various things, but there isn't a lot of money to go to putting on kind of big events, like, you know, big kind of eco events. By big events, I don't mean big by our standards, but I mean bigger than sort of a stall, which is the kind of events that we've been sort of mainly doing with the other literacy stuff. And what we would like to do is put on a sort of eco fair for children, where we have various sort of stalls and things. I actually spoke to Colin about this briefly because we were thinking about doing it kind of maybe the Rec, maybe the Market, maybe East Town Park. And I was thinking about doing another event at East Town Park around eco things, the sort of, you know, treasure hunt for sort of older kids with where they have to kind of solve questions about how to save energy and things like that. But then Colin mentioned the possibility of perhaps trying to tie it in with the Party in the Park, which happens in East Town Park. What date did you say?
Picnic in the Park,
yeah. I was about to suggest that. Okay,
yeah. What date is that?
It's 3rd of August.
3rd of August. Okay.
3rd of August. Okay. Which would give us a good month and a half to sort it out, which would be plenty. So yeah, I mean, it's something that I basically I would like to put on an eco event, and I don't know how you guys feel and whether you think we can hijack Picnic in the Park for it, or whether you think we should put on a separate event. But this would be an event that I would need the council's help with, like I said, because there isn't a lot of, you know, I wouldn't be able to do it on my own, or so basically.
Well, that's why I think Picnic in the Park works for you, Laura, because you wouldn't be hijacking it; you'd be simply helping give it a theme. And as I said to you, I don't think it's terribly far away from the theme that Sarah was working to in any case. So because it is a very kind of, you know, young person's theme at the moment, and obviously East Town Park, that's its theme as well. It'd be difficult to think of how you could put on a much different event at East Town Park that wasn't with a strong eco theme. So I think it makes perfect sense. It's really just a nice marriage of two ideas. There's going to be staff to help organise it. There's a budget for it already. So the only question was, you know, how do we spend that budget? And as I say, I don't think you're actually particularly needing to bend the plans particularly far anyway.
I mean, that's great. That would be absolutely perfect. I mean, what I would want would be the kind of ability to have quite a few little stalls that we had sort of educational games for children on, which is something that I could home make the equipment that we need for the games, but you know, I would need at least the stalls as well as, you know, volunteers to help run stalls because I couldn't run them all at once.
Of course.
And also possibly a bit of money towards some sort of prizes and things. Some sort of like we're thinking about eco-themed children's books. So, you know, sort of being able to give away books with an eco theme. And I don't know if that's something that a bit of the budget could go towards, sort of getting some prizes.
Yeah, I should imagine so. Certainly can do. Yeah, it just depends how far that budget can stretch after everything else. I was just checking. So Sarah's looking at for the Picnic in the Park a children's show that takes place in an 18-metre long sperm whale that's about oceans and plastics.
Excellent.
And I think it's affordable, but it takes out a very big slice of the budget. But I think that's probably okay because I think some of the other stuff we do is relatively low cost. So having a good centrepiece is the main thing. So I'm quite sure that we can be able to fund prizes, etc. We will want to. The difficulty with the bouncy castles, etc., that we normally have is the provider we were going to go to as a local. Their their test certificates have not been renewed, and they, that means we can't use them. So we're waiting to hear back from other providers. But I think I may actually have to contact them and have a conversation about whether or not that's there might be better ways to do things. But I think it's perfectly possible there'll be budget available. How much do you think it would cost? Because these are books and stuff, aren't they?
Yeah, I have no idea. I have not costed anything because it's very early stages of planning. So, I mean, probably the best thing to do would be for me to work out exactly what I need for my sort of ideas, and then I guess maybe meet with Sarah and kind of see.
Sarah and Saffron, but I mean Saffron, of course, has come from a sustainability background anyway, so you won't get any resistance from her to do that. So I'm sure she'll be delighted to help out between Sarah and Saffron.
Perfect.
Interesting. A couple of days after the Picnic in the Park, there is it's actually a barbecue in East Town Park, run by a local nursery. Or preschool age thing. So I don't know whether that would be of any interest because they're predicting between 50 and 100 young people to be there. That's of any interest. And I believe Suzanne was saying the other day that she seems to have a lot of funding through the Literacy Trust. Of books and things like that, prizes, and a little bit more than a paperback, but something else. So
so the problem with the way it works with the books that Suzanne receives is that generally speaking they don't get to choose what books they receive. They receive kind of random, so it's really good for when you want just a bunch of prizes for kids to pick from. So like we're putting on a sort of trail, like a treasure trail for older children at some point, date to be confirmed, with sort of clues they have to solve, and then at the end they're going to get to pick a book from a bunch of like paperbacks for older children, and that's fine because they can just pick from any of the random books Suzanne gets. But it's if we want specific books, that's something that she can't really get unless the publishers are willing to donate. So our first port of call, when we've decided what books we want as prizes, is for Suzanne to see whether they can get the publishers to give them to us. But then any that we can't get a deal on or get, that's kind of when I'd be asking for a bit of budget to come in to kind of cover that cost.
I wonder if we can get anything through the Community Foundation, Colin.
There's all sorts of ideas. I mean, the Community Foundation is always a bit difficult because they've got these kind of loads of little grant schemes that open and close in the wind almost. So
John Eaton's an expert on that, isn't he?
No, John Eaton certainly, Suffolk County Council external funding, but then just contact the Suffolk Community Foundation and just see, to say this is what we want to try and find money for. Who would be interested? I would have thought there ought to be somebody out there, but it's just whether or not there's any funny rules like only north of Ipswich or it's not opening until next week.
Not west of Stowmarket ever. No.
I also am planning on contacting sort of energy and water companies to see if they can give us any freebies to give away of things like energy saving devices, water saving devices, those sorts of things. I don't know if any of you have any ideas about any other good ways to get a hold of things like that. Like, good kind of eco prizes that will actually help people to save energy that will be free for us to get for them.
I think, well, you've already mentioned energy companies. I'm pretty certain Angry Water have a, I'm not going to call it a charity, but a sort of trust type thing that they do give away those sort of things. I mean, I'm not saying it would be the old fashioned, what I would my energy saving device would be the old brick in the cistern type thing to save water. Nowadays you have modern flush things, but that's what we used to do years ago, was put the brick in the cistern. But that that's just an idea, of course. But yeah, they do things. I'm pretty certain they do things. I don't know about electric companies. I'm sure they've all got some sort of community stuff.
What about sort of West Suffolk Council? Do they do anything like give away any energy saving devices or anything?
I don't think they give away devices, but they do have a whole department geared up towards I'm going to say grants, but it's not necessarily financial grants. It's advice and everything. Ranging from what we've already done, LED lighting, all that stuff, to very strange things. And I'm trying to what's the name of the guy there?
There's been a lot of changes there.
I know, and I'm trying to think of the person now. There was a person who they used to give us like briefings, and I could certainly find out who it is now. And there was some really interesting concepts and things, and it's also relevant probably to the next item on the agenda as well.
Definitely.
Yeah, let me see if I can find out the name of the person who's now in charge of that on that side of things, and I'll come back.
Sorry. What time is the picnic in the park?
It starts at about 10:30 in the morning, doesn't it, Colin? Something like that, if I vaguely remember.
Let's have a look.
And then goes on till about 3-ish.
I'm just wondering if that's going to make it hard to find volunteers to run the stalls, it being a sort of work day, midweek, midday thing.
Well, it's in the summer holidays. I think it's from it's either 10 or 11 through till about 2 or 3, I should imagine.
Yeah, I think that's
10 till 3.
When I've been up there setting up and taking down, I'm sure that's what the times are.
And yeah, if anybody can think of any ideas for good like educational games and stalls and things, we've got quite a few already. We're thinking about doing things like sort of fishing for rubbish out of the river, kind of like a magnetic fishing rod thing, but with actual rubbish, sort of, and a kind of hook a duck thing, but it's about what you can feed ducks that's good for them or bad for them. I've got a list, but I don't have it on me because I brought the wrong notebook. So what were our other ideas? We have millions of them. and now I've forgotten all of them. But anyway, if anyone can think of any ideas like that, what we want is to be kind of fun games for children, but that all have like a kind of a message, so, you know, environmental message, basically. Oh yeah, there was like a recycling kind of sorting one, and also about one about like energy saving and stuff and electricity. But yeah, any ideas, send them to me.
Okay. I just want to have a quick look. I didn't know whether also, probably a little bit late, I think, I don't know, we'll see. It might be worthwhile thinking, you know, if we're looking for funding for those prizes, you know, whether there's whether West Suffolk locality money will be applicable. Could be. I mean, that's a Lizzie Cocker thing. Let me just write that down before I forget.
I obviously don't know much about it, but why wouldn't it be?
Only because it's the criteria. I'm not saying it wouldn't be. It's just Lizzie Cocker is the expert in determining the understanding of the rules, if you want to call it that. But I think, yes, it's a possibility. You know, you'd have to let us know how many prizes you're talking about, how many people, of course, you know, roughly how much, and then we can work something out. Let me just write that down. I like locality. I could talk to Lizzie about that. Okay, thank you. Anything else on that, Laura, at all?
No, that was it really. Just to inform you about the eco-lit thing and about the fact that we wanted to put an event on, and just to let you know that we want as many ideas and as much help as possible. So always, you know,
picnic in the park is the ideal time. We get lots of people come along. They might only stay for an hour or so, but they come along, get their face painted or whatever else they do over there.
So it being a picnic, does that mean everybody brings their own food? Are there any food options there, like food selling things?
No, there's the kiosk which sells snacks, teas and coffees. And in the past, I think we did a cake stall. I can't remember quite what the circumstances were.
On the right-hand side, they did a cake stall.
Yeah, but I think normally people just bring their own picnics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's more, not so much the picnic side of things, it's more the activities that are going on.
Yeah.
It's the entertainment, etc. And of course, if there's lots of stalls talking about eco stuff, then that is the entertainment in its own right.
And a lot of people, it's quite surprising how many young people who may not live on that side of town, don't know that there's the activity, the play park. I would call it a play park, but you know what I mean. There's the wooden things that are there.
Yeah. And
that's quite heavily used as well. And obviously walking around the East Ham Park itself.
Yeah.
I will say we want it to be sort of, fun activities, we don't want it to just be a repeat of the sustainability market where it's just kind of boring stalls that, no offense to that, but I mean for children,
kids.
Yeah.
It's very much a young person's thing.
Yeah. So we want everything to be fun.
Yeah.
And actually I would be keen to have Liam or someone like Liam, if he was around, doing a kind of educational stall about wildlife and stuff.
Well, once we've got a plan, we'll be meeting up with Christine anyway, because they're keen to be involved. So I think that'll be a great opportunity. It's unfortunate, of course, one thing you can't really do is show a herd of children all the timid animals and the reptiles, etc. in East Ham Park, because they're all absolutely scarpered at the sound of all the children arriving.
The only other thing I was going to say when you're talking about a bouncy castle is bouncy castles are brilliant, but with the whole blower thing, they're not the most eco-friendly. So would it seem a bit hypocritical to be telling everybody about, saving the environment while we've got this big thing running?
Well, I think that's a discussion you can have with Sarah and Saffron to see if they can come up with something different. At the end of the day, we're not suggesting that people sort of switch off everything and live by candlelight.
No.
So if people are able to have, show that they can have a efficient bouncy castle that isn't being run off a dirty diesel generator or something like that, then I think that it's using energy, but for a reason, as opposed to wasting energy for no good reason.
In the children's area at Strawberry Fair this year, they had trampolines, a whole kind of area of which is obviously another way of doing it. It's not quite as kind of exciting as a bouncy castle, but does the same thing really.
Yeah, it's just Gary, our safety officer, has just clutched his heart.
You can have nets around them.
Let's explore it. If we always do the same thing, we'll always get the same thing. So we should of course see what else we come up with.
And that's one of the things separate from this conversation. We've said previously, isn't it, Colin, that we want, we don't want the same thing every year.
No.
Or the same thing in various parts of the town at the same year. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on quickly to item 8, which is what we mentioned about, is trying to help residents with energy price increases by perhaps educating them into, doing energy saving means. Colin, you want to take on that one?
Yeah, so Tony Brown, who chairs this meeting normally, raised the fact that obviously our role is to try and encourage people to save energy. And right now, saving energy is an extremely good idea in order to save money, particularly as people run up to the autumn and then the winter. The discussion at the One Haverhill board was very much centred around concerns over a potential cost of living crisis. We're not really, I guess we are in a cost of living crisis. I think we can safely say that there will be people making decisions right now about whether they eat or whether they heat the house. And also as fuel costs rocket in terms of mobility, the affordability of jobs locally, and all sorts of things. So I think the role of us in terms of encouraging people to save energy really kind of comes into its own. And what the One Haverhill board have suggested is that they start a cost of living crisis task group, to add an extra task group to their list, and groups like Reach, ourselves, and Citizens Advice, Salvation Army, etc., work together to look at a potential high street location for giving out this sort of advice. Now, we're not able to afford to employ energy advisors, so it'd be on kind of an sessional basis. And I have been trying to get in contact with Warm Home Suffolk, etc., which seems to be the local body that is giving out free advice. Because whilst they can't go around people's homes individually, the same way Anglian Water won't come around your house and tell you how to save water, but potentially if we can get a high street location that we can regularly have surgeries there for people to drop in, and particularly if we have a mix such as a community grocers, community pantry, whatever it might be, that is a kind of it's not quite a food bank, but it's people going shopping at a place where the food is significantly less expensive, that people will be going in and out and can pick up debt advice, can pick up advice on how to handle their bills, energy advice, the same that you've been talking about, Laura, in terms of whether there are free things that people can have. Now, obviously, there was a matter in terms of how we might fund anything like that. And there's a kind of interesting kind of happenstance, which I think is useful for us. You may recall a couple of meetings ago at full council, I think when the March minutes of the energy and sustainability committee, or February minutes rather, of energy and sustainability were being adopted, that a couple of councillors expressed some concern that in an energy crisis we were paying for a baseline energy survey. It actually came out that this committee hadn't suggested that at all. It was actually approved by full council in the September previously. So basically, we entered into a contract. Basically, that we agreed to go ahead with it with Groundworks Trust, that they would carry out this baseline survey of energy use in Haverhill. And the full council agreed £6,000 towards doing that work. So we knew that work was going to start in April. And so I made contact, I think at the end of March, with Groundworks Trust and heard nothing, and chased again and got a response from a worker at Groundworks Trust to basically say that Ollie Savage, who we had been negotiating with the contract in the first place and agreed what they were going to do for us, had in fact left Groundworks Trust now in the intervening time between us agreeing the contract and them supposed having a start date. And so was Sarah Gill, who was working with us on encouraging people to do energy saving. So Groundworks Trust seemed to have something of an exodus, to be perfectly honest. So I don't know quite what on there, but so we have this new person's popped up to say, well, basically, we're going to have to reset and start from scratch. And they've started right back at the original question, which is, do you want to just have an energy survey we can do for free, which is using the online tools, which is quite rough and ready. And the reason that we didn't go for that is it's not necessarily accurate enough to be able to get a proper figure for energy use in Haverhill in any case. So we've slid the whole way back down to the very beginning. And it seems to me that given that there was some resistance or regret, shall we say, at full council about that decision, and that decision has actually been undone through no fault of our own, we now have £6,000 back in the pot. And the people who were saying, why are we spending this money when there's a cost of living crisis? People will be cutting energy use anyway. Well, I wondered whether we should go back to full council to say this 6,000 has popped back up into the system. Could this be the stake money that we can use to fund getting energy advisors, energy advice, etc., into the high street as part of working with our partners to help people through the cost of living crisis? I don't know how that feels to you guys.
If I'm going to go first, if I may, I think that's probably a very good idea. I think it's far more important. When we had this survey, we didn't know there was going to be a war in Ukraine. We didn't know all these other problems, like oil prices going through the roof and everything else that's associated with that. And I think it's much more relevant that we get people to reduce their bills now than wait months and months for some sort of statistic to come out to say our energy usage is X and this is how you can get it down to Y. Potentially, in theory, I think if we can get one or two people to reduce their bills down, we had that example of One Haverhill last week of that family, who couldn't even basically afford to have a shower because it was going to cost too much money to heat the water, and I think that's scandalous. I think we need to, if we can find some energy advisors, that would be lovely if they were free, of some sort of thing. That'd be great. But I think if we can get people through the front door or somewhere and do it, I would say, 100%, drop the survey side of things. Time has moved on. Let's do it for something else. I don't know what the others two think. Anyone? Well,
the really expensive thing in terms of outlay that actually saves people money is insulation, isn't it? And that's why people are super gluing themselves to motorways and what have you. Because it probably needs a determined central government policy fund, what have you, and I don't know how that would come down to the local level. And of course, it needs the skilled installers and technicians, doesn't it? Whom we
Is
may
there
or
not
may
a
not have.
fund? Is there not a fund like that, Alan? That people have complained that the money's sat there, but the mechanism for actually getting it out just doesn't seem to work at all.
Yeah, and it was a relatively limited amount of money anyway. But yes, there was a failure of uptake, which wasn't necessarily people's fault. I don't know.
But it's also,
I think they gave the money to district councils to use instead for the same purpose.
And I think this is what I mentioned this person earlier on with all these grants and everything else. I think that's the person I need to speak to and try and find out who it is anyway. But there's also, I think, before Laura comes in, it's just, I think it's the more immediate stuff that can be done to save, if you could save a couple of quid a week by doing something that's not detrimental to your lifestyle particularly. I had a meeting this morning with Henry Wilson, and one of the things I was saying is, that particular family we were talking about last week is, and I'm not saying it's the case, but is it the case that the family come home at 4 o'clock and the first thing they do is the children put the television on but don't actually sit and watch it, it's because it's in the background. I'm not saying that, but it's an easy way to save money in this crisis. So it doesn't save the problem of the fact you've got to get to work and you need fuel to get to work. Of course not, but it might help a little bit. Thoughts, Laura?
Yeah, so obviously, I think it is a very good idea to help people however we can to know about every possible way they could save energy they might not have thought of, because there are always things that we haven't thought of, things we haven't realised, things to do with sort of how hot you need your water to wash up, little things. And obviously every little thing helps, and I am for that. But I do think that we have to be aware that a lot of people are already doing all or most of these things and still can't afford to heat their homes. And what I would love to be able to say is we should just give all that money to households. But I know it's nowhere near enough. It wouldn't stretch at all, because although it's a lot of money to use for education, it's actually a very small amount of money to divide up around the households that really need it. So I do think this probably is the best use for it, what you've suggested, Colin, just based on the fact that it wouldn't go very far. But at the same time, it's not enough, I don't think. I don't think it's enough for people to do these little energy saving tricks. It's good, it helps, and it is especially good for people who aren't doing any of them. And I'm sure there are some people out there, but those probably aren't the people who really need it financially. I expect that the people who actually are struggling financially are people who are very aware of how to be saving energy. And I think that probably the people who are wasting energy and leaving all their things on all the time are probably the people who can afford it. So yeah, it's great if we reach them too. It's great for the planet if we reach them too. But I think that we have to be very aware that when we're doing these things, we're not implying, oh, well, you're poor because you don't know these tips, if you see what I mean.
No. But I think I was going to clarify slightly what I was referring to is one of the things that West Suffolk tell me from a analysis of people, if you like, is there's quite a few people, surprisingly, and I'm going to use this, and it's not a derogatory term at all, but it's don't necessarily have any life skills capabilities, particularly. Who have come straight from perhaps a family home into a house or a flat, who never had any, I'm not training, but knowledge of that. And that someone told me from West Suffolk a few weeks ago about that, which I was quite surprised about. That you go into that, and I'm not saying they're the same people who do that, but I think anything that we can educate, there may be some things that some specialist advisor has got a brilliant idea. Much as what I was saying earlier on about the old brick in the cistern, which that was back in the 1970s when we were all told to save water in whatever year was 76 and earlier, in fact. Great little idea nobody had thought of before, and lots of people did it to save water in the cistern. That's obviously just water, but in terms of particularly electricity, I'm sure there's all kinds of things out there that I don't think of.
Well, water heating again, if you're thinking about bulk water heating, it's a whole system change, isn't it? It's moving over to, I mean, most people do have instantaneous. I'm guessing most people now, if they have a gas boiler, have an instantaneous boiler rather than storage. But
not me. I've got storage. Man.
Yeah, well, that is, if you're on a night storage system, and it may be cheap, it may be a relatively cheap way of getting your water heated, but it's not kind to the planet potentially, is it?
What people may not know is that there are deals out there for new boilers, lots of free things that people simply don't know about. So it's not that we would be telling people how to suck eggs. It would be making sure that people are fully aware of all the things that are available. So if in terms of water heating, we know that there are special deals out there for boilers, etc., which are far more efficient. I was interested in terms of the brick in the toilet system, which of course was something that everybody was asked to do. Bear in mind, we weren't on water meters. We were asked to do it simply for the greater good of saving water so we didn't run out. And even if you can afford the electricity, you can actually do your bit for your fellow man by not wasting it, because if we can reduce demand overall, then actually our reliance on the expensive fuels, the oils, etc., is reduced anyway. If it was, if we all halved our energy use, then we would half where we need to get the energy from, and mostly we'd be getting it from then wind and solar if we managed to get that far. But although people can't make those sorts of changes, and Laura's absolutely right. I mean, if people's backs against the wall, they've already tried every trick in the book. But there may be pages glued together they simply don't know are there, and that's where we may be able to help.
My energy company, Octopus, the best one, by the way, everybody switched to them. They offer thingy. Oh God, my head is not working today. Those like a heat camera thing to check where like heat's escaping from your house. Like they lend them out for free.
Well, we have one. We have one for the council to use.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't how does that work? Like, can residents just say, can we use it?
Well, what we would hope to do is get a band of volunteers, which is what we've been struggling with in terms of getting a band of volunteers willing to turn their hand to anything, and then we would, basically go around people's houses and just do that check for them, so they could check it out for themselves.
I would do that. I'm happy to volunteer to do that. But yeah, anyway, but I'm sure it's something that probably more energy companies than just Octopus do, that you put yourself on a list. And I tried to get one sort of for this last winter, but I was too far down the list. They have thousands of them, but they have much more demand than that. So I didn't get one. But yeah, I mean, that's the kind of thing that is that people probably don't know where they're losing heat from. And that's quite a simple thing. You don't need to pay you can block up a crack with duct tape if you want, So yeah, I think that's the kind of thing that maybe people don't realise they can borrow something like that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you for that.
At the level of teaching people how to suck eggs, what about how much water people put in their kettles? Because even family members of mine still tend to put, I think the kettle manufacturers say, make sure you've got at least so many centimetres of water in the bottom of your kettle. I never do. I always put I weigh it, with my arm at the point of filling it to, my mug full. I boil it, and the safety cutout is always clicking as I'm emptying my kettle. And you'd think, well, you must get through a hell of a lot of kettles, Alan. No, I don't. I have far more problems with corrosion of kettles than I ever do. I've never burnt an element out in a modern kettle. So clearly there is no need to have more than the cupful or the 2 cupfuls or the 3 cupfuls that you actually need in the kettle. Do people know that?
Yeah, obviously it's got it written down the side. The kettle we've got is one where you set the temperature that you want it. because mostly for making coffee, etc., people boil the kettle and then let the water cool back down again. Whereas this kettle actually says, well, if you want it to be oolong tea, then you only need it to 80 degrees. So it only cooks it to 80 degrees and switches off. So our kettle hardly ever boils.
Well, nevertheless, it's still going to a good fraction of 100 degrees, isn't it? It's going to 70 or.
Oh yeah, but you know the way water works in terms of temperature rises. It's interesting the different energy levels needed for the last little bit. But these are all things that can save people money, and certainly don't put enough. The other one is the one that drives me mad: is put a lid on the saucepan, or why don't you microwave that instead of putting it on the hob at all? I think there are lots of things out there that people kind of know. We all know that we should put a lid on saucepans, but so often people don't.
Well, sometimes recipes will even tell you not to. You must have your pan for pasta freely boiling. Yeah. And don't put a lid on it. I've seen recipes. I mean, they may be older recipes, but but
it's also like things like. If you're cooking something in the oven, is preheat the oven to gas mark, whatever. I never do. I always put my food straight in and it's cooking whilst it's still heating up.
Yeah. You just leave it a bit longer.
Might leave it a couple of minutes longer, perhaps, but that's all. Yeah. Okay. Well, so you're
cool.
Colin, I was going to say the solution maybe. What I hope you might be.
So we're. I've got a meeting with Alison Day, and then get together with Henry Wilson, and kind of get it all planned for exactly what we can do, and kind of push on with the idea. But we'll take it back to full council, as they were the ones that approved the expenditure in the first place, and. No doubt they'll be very pleased to hear that the expenditure isn't going ahead in its original form and be happy enough to go with something different.
Are you able to say anything about the proposal for the town centre you were saying?
It is that in terms of this proposal for the Salvation Army has a proposal for something they're calling the Link, which is kind of what they originally called it a community hub, and they were struggling around because every time they mentioned any sort of buzzword, it turned out it was already being used for something. But basically, it's kind of a high street presence where organisations like Reach and others could be, and it's to try and kind of break down barriers for people, kind of a universal gateway to help available to people. So it's one of the things that is in the One Haverhill Partnership list of ideas for the UK Shared Prosperity Fund funding that West Suffolk have received. So it's kind of thrown in the pot for that in any case. And it's they've slightly extended the time limit on that, so it's something we're going to have to think of as a council, and we won't have time, unfortunately. Full council comes after the deadline, but to try and sort of work out what best we can do with that.
Yeah. Okay. Lovely. Thank you, Colin, for that.
I don't know why they suddenly extended the deadline. Only the day after I pointed out to them that if they sent an email out to all the parish councils in West Suffolk, I never got it.
I think it's exactly that, Colin. I've got a horrible feeling that they suddenly realised, how can we expect you to have a deadline about 4 days in advance? Well, not even 4 days, because it was working days. I think it's 2 or 3 working days. Ridiculous. Okay. I guess we're not going to do energy heat map because Gary's not here.
No.
That's fine. So let's move straight on to item number 10, the review of the action plan. Did you want to, have you got that?
Yeah, so I can bring that up for you.
Yeah.
Is that readable?
Yep, it is for me, yeah. But I've got a big screen here, so.
Obviously we're hoping to move towards being carbon neutral. And we haven't done anything on the training for staff or councillors in terms of integrating environmental considerations into operational decisions, although We do have people who bring that issue up all the time. So we are continuing to look at how we can reduce any energy consumption. We've done this bit for the council, and we've done, I think that process is pretty well completed. So we're getting there on those things. Obviously, these are all things of how you do the tier 1 targets. Then improving resilience, reducing reliance on carbon-based fuel. We haven't had cause to do this yet, or obviously the discussions we've had around solar panels, etc., all comes into that, and it all basically comes into the Salix discussion we've had. So we continue to work on that.
Sorry, Colin, just to interrupt. I know this is a historical document, but we've still got 2 community centres in there, in the middle. I assume that's probably included Bevan House.
Oh, it's Bevan House, of course it is. Yeah. So I will update this document after the meeting.
Yeah, that's fine.
Change to a green electricity provider we've done.
On that, did we not ask Gary to do a review of whether we've achieved what we wanted to do with ecotricity? I mean, it's unfortunate because, of course, we've had the energy crisis now.
So that all the stuff around the heat maps, etc., is all kind of attached to the work of trying to spot the difference, the before and after. And one of the difficulties we've had, of course, is that this was kind of pre-pandemic, and we've now got to wait quite a long time before, because bear in mind, places like the Arts Centre are not up to full speed yet following the pandemic, because there still isn't the product to fully occupy the Arts Centre. So I think it's quite difficult at the moment, but again, you really need Gary here on this one. And in terms of changing the community warden's van, there are a number of things that are needing sorting on the van. It's still, given the mileage, a serious challenge to us to whether or not we go electric, simply on the basis that we should, as opposed to the basis that it's actually a sound sustainability decision, which it almost certainly wouldn't be. The use we put into a vehicle, unless we got a second-hand electric vehicle, which of course I suppose as time goes on becomes more possible, if we buy a brand new electric vehicle, we will never recover its carbon footprint from manufacture, because we simply don't drive enough miles. Favouring battery-powered ground and maintenance tools over petrol models. Well, we haven't bought a petrol device since, but we have bought quite a few electric things. The electric sweeper we're using to clear up the rubbish after the Jubilee, for instance. We're using swappable batteries out, so we only have a certain number of batteries, and they can swap from device to device. And we haven't done anything with the obtain electric bikes for staff, because that hasn't really been necessary yet, and I suspect it's probably extremely difficult to get hold of an electric bike at the moment. But we will do that. Which just reminds me, by the way, John, in terms of the electronic locks.
Oh yeah. It's relevant to this, of course.
Yeah. So I had I text Gary. I did text him in English so that he would get it. Oh, sorry, computer. Let's try that computer. And he said, Yes, we're going with electronic locks. The quote, I won't say the name as we're live streaming, who you directed me, and was okay, but we're just questioning that. But the windows and doors are going in, and then new system can be installed on those very quickly.
Okay,
So
are we going to overpay for the locks because we're going to have to replace the locks?
I don't think that's going to be. Obviously, we're not replacing every single lock. So it's
no. That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
I think, as you know, in terms of using the electric bike, I mean, obviously, it's mostly the Leiston, and if we talk about Leiston here, by the way. And
this would be far better.
Yeah.
Then for Haverhill to be carbon neutral, obviously we had Saffron in her role for a short time, which was very useful. But obviously that wasn't a permanent position or anything like that. So the community groups, that's only really worked in terms of the tree wardens. That was always the most popular thing. And we had the tree wardens planting the first 8 trees in the community orchard this Saturday, because with those trees that Councillor Burns had kindly bought have been sitting growing in pots at the zone, and they have now been transferred to their final position. So hopefully we'll see those grow. So let's get them occupied, and I've connected them up with West Suffolk, the likes of Damien Parker, Simon Collins, and Chris Reed, I think, to just talk about where they can. Oh, sorry, Christine Williams rather, to where they can plant trees. So that they get a little bit more of a roll on. So they're getting some trees in the autumn that they'll want to plant up. So the trees they planted up Hales Barn Way, the 50 or so oak trees that they planted are all still doing okay. But it would be great to be able to have more volunteering. But I think obviously the pandemic has really, I think, disrupted the launch of the volunteer centre. I think that's something we need to perhaps put some extra oomph into to get that going, because a lot of these things rely on that. And we just talked about identifying the current baseline carbon footprint of Haverhill, and we're now looking for an alternative. And the Freeco type thing, which I think Alan has touched on a couple of times in terms of the potential for people to invest in solar panels on people's roofs, etc. I think it still remains a good idea, but I think I don't think we've quite found the hook on which to hang that quite yet.
That's great.
And that's that.
Thank you, Colin.
Did you want to look at the policy?
Yeah, that's the next one on the agenda, if you wouldn't mind.
I don't know whether this would be better done if members actually read it offline and came back for comments on it, rather than us attempt to do this online.
Well, I personally have read it. I didn't have. I know Alan may have probably more input than I have. I thought it was still all relevant. I think it was only last September we approved it, if I vaguely remember.
Yeah, so it's not long.
Oh no, it was a year ago, was it? Oh no, I thought.
Yes.
Okay.
It was February, according to this.
Was it February? Oh no, that's right. I misread it as the other way around. Sorry, I've got the date on my document wrong. I didn't have a problem with this. I don't know if Alan or Laura had any comments on the policy. Nothing?
No.
No, I couldn't see anything. I had a quick look at it over the weekend.
Okay.
Looks all right to me. Okay.
Cool, thank you.
Lovely, thank you for that. Lost it. Item 12 now. Items for next meeting. I think we've already got some items already. Obviously, we need Gary's input.
Yeah.
Laura, Alan, any other things other than what we've already discussed?
No.
I don't have an item for next meeting, but I have this thing that Nam gave me that is about her thing that she wants to try and get West Suffolk District Council to listen to about the verges.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, I was hoping that you and Tony would be in the meeting, John, but I wonder if I could send it to you for you to have a look at. And it's just about not wanting them to spray herbicides and insecticides and to allow the verges to grow in certain areas. She's gone into a lot of detail. I'm not expecting you to read it, but just so you can see, she's kind of got a whole plan.
Pushing against an open door, isn't it? I don't think they spray herbicides, insecticides in public spaces anymore anyway, do they?
I didn't think so, but she seemed to think they do.
No, this year is the first year for about 3 years that they've sprayed on the road where grasses or weeds are growing, in the tarmac and everything else like that. I'm not aware that, and in fact, West Suffolk have got quite a strong policy on allowing grass verges to grow wild in many places. There is obviously, I get every week a grass cutting schedule, but I think all the grass cutting schedules I've seen are mostly, things like the recreation ground and big areas like that. So it'd be interesting if she has spoken to somebody.
Yeah, so I don't know where she got this from about the spraying, but she told me that that it's done, and this I don't think I'm making this up. Every 3 months, I think she said, and I think she said she thought it was due to be done again, not every 3 months throughout the year, but that it was due to be done again, sort of next spring or something. I don't know, like at the beginning of next spring.
I know they only do the areas where, it's essential for stopping roads being stuff like that, because it's a Suffolk County Council thing. It's not I'm not aware that West Suffolk go around deliberately spraying areas of verges and things.
So why would it ever be essential for them to spray things like that? Why can't they just, keep things cut if it's dangerous?
Well, that's why I agree with John. I'm not sure that the only use of weed killers or steam or wherever it might be would be on weeds on pavements that are growing through the pavements. I can't imagine why they would weed killer a verge. To be perfectly honest, they are extremely reluctant usually to spray weed killer full stop, because instantly they do it, then 10 minutes later there's people on the phone saying my dog's eaten the weed killer. So this is one of the reasons why it's supposed to be being totally phased out and moving over to non-chemical interventions.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. That was what I thought, but anyway, I mean, I will.
We can certainly find out for you, Laura.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll send you what she's only given me a hard copy, so I have to take a picture on my phone.
No, do that. Just send it to my phone. Yeah, phone is fine. Yeah. I'll find out what the policy is, but I'm not aware that they spray unless literally, it's something, I don't know, something like. There's a classic one at Wesley Crossroads near Bury St Edmunds. You go up there, it's a 60-mile-an-hour road, and at one point the council were letting all the stuff grow on the verge, and you get to the junction, you just cannot see up the road. So eventually they cut it and sprayed it, but that's fine because it was just basically, there was nothing there anyway. But that's the only, those sort of places, the only place that I'm not aware that they.
I still don't understand though, why spray it? If it's a visibility issue and you cut it, then you've cut it. So
but it requires somebody to go and cut it, which is manpower and its cost and everything else like that. And that's only a small area. I'm talking about a few square meters. We're not talking about large areas of meadowland or anything like that. I'm not aware that they spray anything like that. I mean, apart from anything, it's the cost of the insecticide or whatever it is that, I'm not talking about insecticide, but you know what I mean. Pesticide.
Herbicide.
Herbicide, that's the word I'm looking for. I knew it was one of those sides, yeah.
I mean, obviously, spraying anything is harmful to, all kinds of things. So So yeah, but anyway, I will send you what she sent me. I just said I would see if I could get a district councillor to take it up for her. So I will.
Yeah,
send
no, I'll
it
find
to you
out.
if that's
Let's
all right.
find out the policy, what the policy is.
Yeah.
First, yeah.
But
Sorry, Alan.
does she, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I
I'm
can
not
hear you.
engaged. Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Ooh.
I can hear you, Alan.
Can you? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Oh, well, I must have unmuted earlier. Sorry, I'm panicking here. Does she know that verges of roads mostly are county council rather than district council?
I don't think so.
And does she, I mean, really, she shouldn't. I'm not saying she's making accusations, but really, if she's going to say they spray every 3 months, she should have some evidence.
She may not have
that.
said that. I may be making that up.
No, but
I am. In my brain at the moment, this week is extremely oversaturated, and I can barely form words. And she said this to me in a very brief conversation.
Oh, I see. This is not in the
So,
document.
No. This is literally, we had a conversation on her doorstep 2 days ago, and I may have made that up. So okay. I'm not saying she definitely said that. That was what that's what my brain's telling me she said, but I don't promise she said that at all. But I know she said something about wanting to make sure they don't spray the next time they're going to spray, which she thought was the beginning of next year or something like that. So she wants to get between now and then an agreement that they're not going to spray again.
Normally I know for a fact that the councils have been bitterly moaned at for not spraying every year. And they did stop at one point, not because of the fact of not doing it. It's just that basically someone forgot to order the herbicide that particular year. But that's fine. Let's find the policy and we'll come back. If you could send that to us, Laura, and I'll
also, I didn't know that you bought those trees, John. So thank you. I'm a very part-time tree warden, so I'm not following things a lot.
I was going to ask if there was any more needed. I'm sure I can help again.
I'm sure there probably are, but I am not the person.
One thing I didn't know that we'd actually planted any up House Barn. I know we spoke about things, but I didn't know we'd actually gone ahead and done it. That was the only thing. That's fine. We know now. That's fine. Right, if nothing else on that agenda item, date of next meeting is Monday, the 19th of September at, I guess, the same time. Looking at the calendar. 6 o'clock. Hopefully Tony will be here that time. Just have a look at the calendar, is there? I haven't put, no, West Suffolk full council's the following week, that'd be right. Okay, let's, would you like